As a matter of fact, this is not my first time in Colombia, but this is my first time ever of my life in South America. So I'm very, very, very happy. Thanks to Felipe Londono that I met a few years ago in this kind of context in Electra, thanks to our common friend Alain Thibault in a festival dedicated to media art. And we talked together in 2011 or 12 by saying, okay, we have to do something together. And finally, Felipe and his friend Carlos came to Paris at first. In 2015, he visited my exhibition. I was very, very, very happy. And we talked together about the idea of the opposite, meaning me coming here by accompanying a few French artists in this cross-cultural season between France and Colombia. So I started by giving a talk at Bogota with Carmen Gilvorich at the Voltaire session, and I arrived here in this beautiful city, and this is a very, very, very interesting experience. Obviously too short, but very interesting experience. And the context of ISEA, of course, is very interesting, and it's interesting to mention that people already know Manizales thanks to the Festival de Imagen, but more people around the world will know Manizales after Hong Kong, after Vancouver, after huge cities. There is Manizales, and it's good to know. Let's start with the end. I got my PhD, it's never too late, a few months ago, but I started by being not that good at school, and this is why finally I ended in art school, and it was at the beginning of computers. I hated computers at this period of my life, and I was not that bad at painting, but I decided to stop being an artist and to become an art critic and a curator because it's definitely, I think, easier. So I spent my time by trying to focus on digital technologies because I was working in some advertisement company when I discovered old Macintosh computers and the first Photoshop and softwares like that, and I continued, and finally this is what I teach to my students. But thanks to my other background, meaning the fine art school and the university, it took time, but it took time to be in that kind of position, meaning being an art critic and a professor, being a curator, by focusing on what I really have appreciated for decades, meaning art and digital, trying to find art in the context of digital or trying to find digital in the context of art. I wrote a first book about 5-6 years ago that was about contemporary art and new media. And the second one was about my 3 exhibitions in Montreuil named Art and Digital Resonating, meaning together. And the next one will be titled Art Beyond Digital, published in French with my publisher, Scala Edition, as a real book with pictures and etc. But it will also be released on the Domenico 40 D-Link publishing house online as a PDF file without images, but for free for everybody and in English. And I think that this is very important. And it will be some kind of review, of panorama of the contemporary practices in art at the era of digital. But from a European point of view, I say that because it's important to mention that there are a lot of theoreticians looking after art, digital, post-digital art, and etc., but from New York, most of the time New York or Los Angeles. And I think that being here, the point of view, the perspective is different, obviously, and living in Europe, the perspective is a little bit different. And there are artists from all over the country, or from many countries, including an artist living in Canada, but being a Colombian artist that will be in my book, and maybe some other. This is because I've spent a lot of time by being finally separated in 2 or maybe several lives, and I'm trying to regroup all this life, meaning I earn my living by teaching in the context of media design, digital media, to some students, like at the Caldas University, in several places, including in the US, because I'm used to teaching at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago in the US, and I spend the money I earned by teaching by visiting countries, visiting festivals, writing articles, and etc. So the common point of these two practices is digital. In the context of communication and media, advertisement, etc., and in the context of art. And sometimes they fuse according to the countries. Meaning, for example, in Japan, it's very easy to move from a company to contemporary art. So media art design.net, it means I am really interested in the relationship between media and art. I am also interested about the relationship between media and design, and I have to mention that people such as Paola Antonelli at the Architecture and Design Department at the MoMA Museum in New York are very important by opening the door of some museums for the digital practices, but through the design door, not through the art door. So finally, there are bridges between art and design, and the best ever bridges between art and design communities is digital. So, and it's on the internet, so .net, so mediaartdesign.net. It defines who I am. The future of media art, a lot of people here will disagree with me. Media art is dead. I mean, digital art is dead. I mean, video art obviously is dead. Meaning there is video everywhere. There is video in every contemporary art museum, art center, gallery, art fairs, and etc. So it means video started at the end of the 60s and finished at the end of the 90s. Meaning when the video medium has finally been accepted by the contemporary art world. And I think I say that right now the contemporary art world is finally accepting after, let's say, 50 years the digital medium. So for me, digital is not anymore a trend. Digital is definitely a medium, and it has to be considered as photography, as video, and as many medium, even if the digital medium is definitely open to a lot of practices, but it also modifies photography, modifies sculpture because of the prototyping and the CNC machine. So finally, digital is everywhere. It doesn't have to be some digital art community. There is a community of art, and inside this community of art, there are artists using the technologies of their time. Yeah, I'm used to teaching, as I told you, and I am used to giving conferences. I've given conferences such like that one, for example, 2 years ago at ISEA Vancouver, and I love that. And so on my computer are, let's say, 50, 60 conferences. So, and how do I regroup these artworks to make a brand new conference is finally each time I travel, each time I enter a gallery, a festival, I take pictures, I try to write on my blog. I also have a blog on my website. I also have a Tumblr when I put images. I'm some kind of maniac. And by saving all these data, one day it will reemerge. So today it was a little specific, but it's always specific. The specific is the context of let's say art and digital. Let's say digital art. We could still use this terminology, even if I think that this is the end or the beginning. This context of digital art, the context of research, ISEA, the context, the political context, meaning cultural and political context of the relationship between Colombia and France that is very strong this year. So I decided to focus on the using of digital in contemporary art by artists living in France because of the context of digital, of art, and of cultural exchange. So each time I am invited, asked to give a talk. I give it with pleasure by trying to focus on the idea of the moment, and the idea of today was a coefficient of digital in artworks, referring to Norbert Hiller, who referred to Marcel Duchamp with the coefficient of art in any object. The artist, according to Marcel Duchamp, is up to reveal or not the art coefficient of any object, and the art critic and curator nowadays has to reveal the digital coefficient of artworks, even if I work to merge these two communities with my art fairs. This is definitely what I do. I exhibit only artworks that has something to do with digital, but by the way, every artwork has something to do with digital nowadays.